All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this season opening event of Oasis. If you don't know this space, this is a very accessible space, so it really is for everyone and has been since 2014. And the idea is that all kinds of people from university, from high school, from wherever, come and meet and they play games, they hang out, and they just relax on the pillows, on the Fat Boys and in the Warp. So it's a very social space that is friendly and colorful compared to the steely university. Here you see you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And yeah, we're open Monday to Friday, slightly different hours on Friday, but yes, please visit us and spread the word, spread the gospel. You can come and listen to interesting lectures here. We have Oasis lunchtime talks, for example, with different topics, different speakers, different expertise. You can come and play games, not just digital games, but also digital games. You can, for example, make a spot reservation for one of the more advanced consoles or the newer consoles, or you can play the board games or card games or what have you. You can also just come and hang out, as I said before. We'll probably have an after-hours event where we'll put a lot of extra beanbags here, and then we'll have on the big screen a space documentary. So there's all kinds of things planned, also as far as chilling is concerned. Then we have today's schedule.
Great, it's about 2 hours of the presentation. We'll have a panel.
Mascot naming competition. You can see our little mascots there, from tiny to bigger to huge, which is the big fluffy unicorn at the bottom. And so the idea is that we have those 3 plushies. We have 3 weeks to name them. So yeah, we need your help with this because currently they are a bit soulless without their names. Yeah, you can do this via social media, or you can do it by putting grabbing one of those purpley pieces or slips of paper that look like this, and it, for example, says alpaca on it. And so what you do is you grab the piece of paper, you suggest a name on the back of it, and you toss the slip into the box. Or scan the QR code, which is here on the box too, if you prefer that. So yeah, they need names, and they need you to name them. So yeah, the theme of this year, if you didn't pay attention before, hopefully you didn't, but yeah, the theme is this. And now the question is, what could that be?
What?
Do you have an idea? What could this be? What is this? Stickman? Making a puzzle. So what could the theme be? Maybe the card playing ladies. What do you think? What's the theme? Cohesion? I understood cohesion. Is that what you said, or what did you say? Yeah, cohesion. So things sort of being together. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It goes in that direction. So almost co-creation. So making things together. That's the idea behind it. Okay, so we have different things today. We have the Lego table here where you can co-create. You have the food where you can make a grape balloon dog. I bet you do it not together, you do it on your own, but you complement each other on the great looks of your dogs. And you can also do things here, so you can play Minecraft. There's lots of options. That's it, so we move to the introduction of the speakers.
Okay, I hope this works. So I'll have
Yeah, no, like you can do that afterwards.
Yeah, really.
Come on.
Thanks so much. I think I have my own microphone. Thanks.
Right.
So I'll manage with this one. So I'm here to talk about collaboration and co-creation and things like that. And as said, I come from the Finnish Museum of Games, which is located here in Tampere, in Vapriikki Museum Center, about a kilometer from here. So you're all very welcome to visit. We have free entry on Fridays from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock if you want to use that. So my topic today is about collaboration, but first I want to say a couple of words about my background, where I come from. And as said, I'm working at the Finnish Museum of Games. I have a quite long history in the museum field already. I've been working about, well, over 10 years already in museums since 2010, so that's close to 15 years, I guess. And I've been working with different kinds of exhibitions, first in a media museum, and then we kind of got the idea of actually making a permanent game museum here in Tampere. So I'm going to talk about that next, and maybe also share some ideas about inclusivity and diversity, perhaps participatory design and things like this. Yes. Okay, I think that the slides are a bit off, but I'll manage. I'm sure I can manage. They seem to be cutting a little bit. But first I want to say a couple of words about the sort of background where we enter, the museum field enter the discussion about games and game history and perhaps game heritage in Finland. And you could say that there had been quite a lot of public interest in Finland in the mid-2010s when we started working on this already, dealing with games. And I guess one of the early pioneers was Jaakko Suominen, who's still working with game history. And he already in 1999 he put out a call to retro gamers, which was a kind of new concept at the time. And another sort of early adopter group was the Pelikonepeionit, who are pictured here and who are collaborating with us still today, and who were very central in setting up the museum. And they founded, or they set up their group in 1999. And various other people also starting working with games and game history. And okay, let's see. Okay, something is going on here. Let's see what I can do. So we have a really powerful machine here, but it doesn't seem to be able to deal with my slides. Okay, there was a joke there. I didn't make it. And another thing here was about the sort of collaboration between the university and the museum. And actually, I was looking at Frans Maurers, who's the professor here, at his pictures on Facebook, and he remembered that he had already, with his team of students, collaborated with the museum already in 2003 for the Media Museum exhibition. I wasn't around then, but my colleague Outi Penninkangas was around, and I kind of asked her a little bit about this, and turns out that they were already dealing with digital culture in an exhibition in 2003. I managed to dig up one of the images or the wall text for that exhibition. There's a kind of nice piece about hackers. There wasn't anything about games, but games were sort of floating around also in the collaboration. And in 2011, at the latest, you can see a picture down on the right. There was a clear collaboration between the Game Research Lab and the museum, making a sort of very small one-wall permanent thing about games, and also there was a cabinet of playable games. But a kind of next step was perhaps the Finnish games then and now, which you can see on the above on the top right, and that was another project. And we already talked about Anna-Kaisa Kultimo here in combination with the Oasis, and she was also really central in setting this up. I think Kati was also involved, perhaps some other people, maybe Timo was also involved in this exhibition. So it was only on for a couple of weeks, but it was really popular, and we sort of realized that there's a really there's a public interest in dealing with game history, but also Finnish game history. And that's when we sort of started talking about more about setting up the exhibition. But at the same time, that had other things had been happening, and people had been doing these exhibitions. And I guess one of the early ones was the Computerspiele Museum in Berlin, which still exists, and it's kind of like something that people look up to when they are talking about game exhibition. And it was an early collaborator in that field. But also in Finland, various people were setting up their exhibitions, and this is also a collaboration with the Media Museum. The Pelikone started doing their own. This is an early exhibition also in the Media Museum. This is from an exhibition opening. The exhibition was called Ready Commodore Kulta-aika, so the golden age of the Commodore 64 in 2006. So all these things kind of go back a long while. And just to make it even more complicated, there was also kind of like people on the net had been organizing and setting up their own collections, their own databases, their own so-called rogue archives, as the Kosnik says. So databases of games where you could often even download old games, and people or sort of nobody seemed to really be interested in protecting the IPs, and there was sort of this interest in also playing these games. So, and also in the mid-2010s, when we started working on this, some of the first popular histories of the topic had come out, like Sinivalkoinen pelikirja by Juho Kuorikoski, which was crowdfunded, or there was a database, videogames.fi, that was putting together information on Finnish games. But sort of what we realized at this stage in mid-2010s was that we want to make a permanent museum about Finnish games, and we want to do it together with different groups. And we sort of put collaboration in the center. We were, from the start, from the get-go, we were collaborating. We put up a crowdfunding campaign in 2015 that went really well. We were collaborating with groups like Kasettilammerit, who are digitizing old games as a hobby. We set up a wiki project that you can see in the middle, an image from one of our sessions, where people just came together and wrote about Finnish games as a sort of pastime, as a hobby as well. And we also wanted to collaborate with different other heritage organizations in Finland, like the National Library and other museums, Design Museum and Technical Museum in Helsinki, who were interested in this, and NeoGames, which is the game industry organization, and different researchers. So that was kind of what we wanted to do in the beginning. And at the same time, when we made this decision, we were able to kind of use the museum resources. The Finnish Museum of Games is part of the Tampere Historical Museums, which is kind of like, in Finland, quite a big organization. We have almost 100 people working for that. So there's specialists like conservators, there's people doing contemporary documentation and various other things. And we sort of started working with these people as well. And quite early, we did quite a lot of different contemporary documentation projects with game companies or Finnish game jams, and sort of project where a researcher went to these events or these companies and made interviews and took photographs. So there was quite a lot of information about what's going on and what's happening. And at the same time, of course, we were able to get different contacts and collaborate. And we also wanted to sort of, at the museum, we realized that we don't really want to talk just about the games. We also want to talk about the players and play as a phenomena. So we put together a couple of calls, like the photo collecting campaign Pelimuistot Talteen, from which these photos are in 2015, and then an oral history campaign called Joystick Kaakoon in 2017, together with other people as well. So kind of also shifting the focus. We didn't only want to talk about games as a playable artifact, but also how people have experienced games. And these photos are a really nice set. I think we have a couple of 100 photos like this at the moment, and they really tell, sort of put this different stories and the context where the games were played in center stage here. So, and at the same time we were reaching out to different game makers in Finland, and we didn't only want to talk with the big companies, the sort of hotshots of Finnish game industry. We wanted to talk to all kinds of people making games for a hobby, or people sort of who had been around for a long time, but also sort of the more well-known people. So this is just a small amount of the interviews and the documentaries that we have made. You can check them out at our YouTube channel. Most of the stuff that we do is there, and most of the stuff also has English subtitles. So, to sort of sum up a little bit what we wanted to do when we set up the museum, we wanted to look at games through a local, a Finnish perspective, but also through a kind of participatory lens or a collaborative lens. So we wanted to understand how Finnish games and game culture is different from a US perspective. We wanted to understand games as a continuum from physical analog games to modern games, and this is a nice image about that side, because we sort of realized that games in Finland have a really long history. This game on the table is the first game that was ever published in Finland, called Lustfärdi Aavasaksa, Huvimatka Aavasaksaan, from 1862. And the gentleman over there next to my colleague Outi is Kari Bergholm, who told us a story about how this particular copy of the game has been in his family for 7 generations now. So every generation has been playing this game, and they've been sort of teaching the game to sort of the next generation and next generation. And we made a small documentary where Kari was teaching the game to his son and his son's daughter Venla Leimu, who contacted us, and Venla's daughter. So it's kind of like a nice story about how games are part of our lives. Even sort of, this is a very simple game. There's not really even a tactical element to it. You just throw the die and walk around, and sort of learn about Finland and Finnish culture. But in their family, they have really liked this game, and it's part of their heritage. The image on the right, then again, is from a game called Propilkki, and how we set it up at the museum. Well, you can't really maybe see that much from this photo at the moment, but you can see something, and it sort of shows how we want to have displays that are not only about the playable game. In the upper right, you can see there's a couple of cards, like cardware cards that you send through the post, that we got as a donation from the makers of the game, and they had a huge collection of cardware cards, and cardware was the thing in early 2000s, I guess, where people who made games, and the games were downloadable for free on the net, they just asked the people downloading the game to send them a card through the post and tell about what they liked about the game and the stories behind that, and that's a really nice collection for somebody, maybe a researcher, to look at some point to sort of really see these stories. Yes. So, from these starting points, we then started to put together the museum, and there's a couple of images from our sort of crowdfunders VIP opening in 2016, where the first month that we were open only to the crowdfunders, and sort of that was part of the idea of behind the crowdfunding campaign. There's a couple of images from different visitors that we had, visiting groups in the first year of the museum, and sort of it was really nice to notice that sort of making an exhibition like this, putting collaboration, by collaborating with kind of the stakeholders that you have, and we were really happy that this went really well. There's also a couple of images of different prizes that we got along the way, and this is also really kind of heartwarming to look at now, even now after all these years, that quite different stakeholders thought that this was a really important thing to do. There was the Geek Girls Finland, there was the Game Educators Finland, there was the game industry, and also we got an international technology museum award. So it was kind of, we managed to to speak to quite a lot of different stakeholders, and they thought that what we were doing was important. So to kind of maybe sum up a little bit, our journey started from collaboration. We had been collaborating with the university with different hobbyist groups, game collectors, but it kind of led to participatory practices where we really wanted to put the focus on the people who are part of this culture, part of the game culture, and we wanted to make things together with them. And the sort of big shift, I think, here is that we put the focus of the museum more towards kind of like being an enabler for people's dreams to be realized, instead of being kind of like being the experts ourselves and just kind of sitting in the ivory tower and looking at this is important, this is what we should be talking about, and instead sort of enabling people's dreams, talking together with them and sort of trying to make sure that the project that we're doing is for everybody, not just like the most vocal groups. Maybe like one of the things that we were talking about quite a lot is that retro gaming as a hobby is kind of like a quite centrally kind of like a male hobby. So we wanted to kind of talk quite a lot about that and maybe kind of aim for a more diversified exhibition, diversified museum experience. So, and also kind of, well, as I said, we wanted to be reflexive about these power structures that exist in game heritage and the game retro gaming discussions. So here's a couple of images from, well, the Wikipedia one we saw. This is from the Wiki project. This is from one of our openings, I guess, where the two 80s tabletop role-playing game designers from Finland came together in the museum after like 30 years and sort of realized that this is actually important. It's something that should be remembered and preserved for people. This is most of our curatorial group. You can see there's a couple of familiar faces. Elisa should be there, and maybe Anna-Kaisa, who we talked about, is over here. This is the Pelikonepeijonit group. This is me. My colleague is probably Outi is probably here. This is Jukka Kaupinen, who's a game journalist. This is Mika, who did the technical design. This is Riina and Silja, who were working at the museum at the time. And then we have another image here, which is from one of the early super interesting project that we did called My Game History, where students came together to sort of think about what games are important for them. That project actually ended up as a book, and the book should be downloadable as a PDF on the Tuni website, I think. So yes, I don't know. So we still have 10 minutes, right? So we could look at a couple of projects, or then we could just take questions. Maybe we really quickly look at the projects, and then you can ask the questions. So I just wanted to put together some photographs about, after making the permanent exhibition, we are doing a lot of sort of smaller changing exhibitions, what we call studio exhibitions. I just wanted to show a little bit about what the kind of shift in focus means here, how we are kind of trying to work together with people and enable their ideas about what is important. That this was a project where we worked together with Cosvision and Suvi Liukkonen, who's here, and Petra Lindström, who's over there with cosplay as a sort of hobby and as a sort of the history of cosplay in Finland. It was a really nice project. It ended up being a kind of like traveling exhibition that was also shown in other events. Here's another thing I want to show. It's from an exhibition that we did together with these people who had been making a fanzine back in the 80s called Micropost. There's an image here down here, and they hadn't seen each other since then, since 85 or something. But then we sort of, or some of them, we started talking with Reimo Mäkinen, the guy in the yellow shirt was really central here, but he kind of contacted us and said, I really want to sort of look back at what happened then. I think it was a really important thing, and maybe we could reach out to all the other people who were involved and make it kind of like a get-together thing. And that's exactly what happened. And after, well, not 40 years, but well over 30 years, the people kind of got into contact again and sort of exchanged ideas and thoughts about what had been important about this kind of small fanzine that came out in nine issues in the 80s, and then they made a 10th issue for the exhibition. Another example. This is from a more recent thing that we did, that's already 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, an exhibition on the Noita game. The Noita game is a Finnish game, which is, I don't know, it's called probably like a roguelite or something, kind of like a popular indie game. Lots of people streaming it and sort of a very active community. And in that project, we reached out to the original designers, the Nolla Games people, Petri and Arvi and Olle, but also to the community who had been, who is still playing this game, and sort of asked them, what do you think is important about this game? And it was actually really interesting project, this as well. And this is from the exhibition that we have on now at the moment, and this is called Pixel Years. And again, a kind of similar story. This is about demo scene or Commodore 64 demo scene, and sort of, well, here all male panel coming together, but this is kind of how computing culture maybe was in Finland at the time. The demo scene at the early stages was really male. So these people came together. They had met many times over the internet or met over the internet, but coming together into this exhibition, actually meeting each other, was a very important part of the exhibition. So just a couple of examples. Oh, I have more examples. Well, maybe a couple of words about this as well, because this is also an interesting thing. Sort of on a similar note, we have been also doing a couple of projects online, like digital ethnography, where we go to different game communities, or we have already been part of those game communities, and we aim to preserve those communities together with the people. Here are some really nice images from a GTA 5 role-playing server, Finnish role-playing game server, Pori, which happens in a fictional Pori. That image is from there as well, and here's some stuff about the Batmod, which is a really long-term multi-user dungeon from Finland. And an important part here is, of course, to have the trust. Like in any kind of ethnographic work, you need to have the trust of the community to be able to do stuff like this. And also we are working currently on a project dealing with the Nokia N-Gage, and that's also an interesting project we have. We are aiming to open an exhibition in October this year. In the picture you can see researcher Heikki Jungman, who is here, and some of our informants from different N-Gage projects. But yes, I guess that's what I have to say. I'm open for questions, so please, if you have them, raise your hand, or maybe do something else to get our attention.
Ask about the actual implementation of the games. They're playable in the museum, and what were sort of the challenges of actually having playable games, that many games in an exhibition in a public space where everyone can play them? Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, there's so in the museum there's something like 85 playable games at the moment, and there are challenges, yes. I guess some of the challenges we were able to overcome with the people who originally made the game. So we contacted all the developers, all the game makers, all the companies, and sort of asked them, what do you think is the most important version of your game? What kind of version do you want to put on display? Perhaps if you have a kiosk version, like a dedicated version that's made for being on public display, if we could have that, etc., etc. So every game was kind of a case of its own, and there were some challenges.
And when we opened, I don't think we had sort of tackled all these challenges, and I don't think we have even tackled them yet. So it's kind of like a continuing process where we try to come up with better solutions. But I think that one of the nice things here was the retro gaming community is sometimes talking about kind of like you can't really understand a game if you are not playing it on the original hardware. And quite early on in the project, we made a decision that we don't really need to go there. We can emulate games, we can do different things, as long as we try to sort of preserve the quality of the game and the spirit of the game. And I think that kind of, in most cases, succeeded quite nicely because we were talking to the people who actually made the game, and in some cases also the play community. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I was wondering, because there's at least two cases of university courses that have become exhibitions, like the Finnish games then and now already in 2012. That was a predecessor kind of for the current museum, and then the My Gaming History that ran at least 2 times, I think, and then was also an exhibition in the museum. So do you see that there's potential of this happening again, and do you have any visions what they could be?
I think we should do a third one of them. Interesting to hear about what kind of like individual histories people have with games, because then you kind of see the particularities and the sort of really interesting, but also the things that people have in common, the sort of experiences that they have. And it would be really nice to do a project like that, maybe as a course in the game research lab or somehow. I don't know how it should be done again, but we need because in the earlier project, Anna-Kaisa was really active in these as well, but she's not here anymore. So maybe we should.
So now we have Jakob Terus here and Anna-Kaisa
Yeah.
in Aalto, so maybe we could have some kind of.
Maybe we could have that, and we have been also talking Harera about doing kind of like another project where we would put the focus on sort of racialized Finns who are not like the Finns that you think are the Finns, if that makes sense, to make a more inclusive and diverse idea or sort of presentation about what gaming in Finland means. Yeah.
About
Yep.
diversity, have you had about diversity? Did you have any exhibition about queer games or queer gaming?
Not yet. Yeah.
Because that could be a course.
I think that's a very nice idea for a course, and maybe something that we should work together towards together. Yeah. Sure. Maybe one more, or do we still have time for a question?
Okay, since I have it, I'll ask a question. I'll go ahead and ask.
Well, I guess the challenge is that you need a different skill set for doing that than you need when you're a kind of like an expert curator or a researcher. Because you need to do, from the get-go, you need to do a different thing. You need to listen to people, not be the expert yourself. So that's one challenge. But I guess if you're open to the challenge, it gives you a lot. And I'd say that kind of it makes lots of things possible that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Also, maybe it makes it more complex because you have kind of more pieces that you need to move around when you're doing the planning of the exhibition. But I'd say that it's definitely worth it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did I answer the question?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, that was good.
Well, I guess thank you very much, Niklas, for your insightful talk and for answering the questions as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Cheers.
Next. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. This was a really good excuse to revisit a draft paper that I wrote about a year and a half ago already. I've been writing other things and mainly in Finnish, so this was actually really nice to sort of go back to this. And I'm sure you can recognize where the picture is from and probably remember the Bernie memes. This was made by my colleague Riitta Yrjönen, who some of you might know, during the pandemic times, obviously. So I'm gonna tell a little bit of a chronological story about the sort of methods, loosely interpreted, that I've been using and what I've been doing in this project. So I have a postdoc project funded by the Academy of Finland that started in 2019, which is called Making Meaning Out of Meme Making: The Politics of Online Image Circulation. So in February 2021, so 2 years ago, one night I was laying in bed quite late, scrolling through my Instagram account, and I had been starting to follow more and more Finnish meme accounts on my sort of personal account. So I realized quite late at night, you know, trying to get ready to sleep and relaxing, I started thinking about methods. And I was like, okay, this is not a good thing. I'm supposed to sleep and not think about research at a really late hour. So I had been, at the time, been on burnout leave for about 5 months the previous year, and I was only working half time. So even for that, it was not really good habit to be thinking about work things that late at night. So the next morning I started this new Instagram account. I think they're quite small there, but both of my accounts are mentioned there. But so Memepal project is the sort of work account I started. So then I started following all the Finnish meme accounts with that account and quit following them with my personal profile. So then I could keep sort of work and other life separate more. So pretty soon after, I think it was on the same day that I started this work project account, some meme researcher memes started to appear. And I'll show some of them. So you get the sort of references.
No,
I'll get to it. So the first one, this is like, oh, meme researchers, oh, watch me or monitor me. And then the other one is university meme researchers. And Scully is saying, I'd say, Mulder, there's something shady going on. Let's examine it. And so my question, of course, immediately was like, oh, my data or my research topic is looking back at me. What do I do now? And I had no idea whether the intent behind them was hostile or not, whether it was, laughing at me or laughing with me, whatever was the sort of, or what were the emotions behind these images. And I have some previous experience on what I call the vomit of hate in my inboxes. Whoops. I was gonna, well, okay. now I lost the whole thing. That's not it. Okay. Anyways, so I was just gonna, yeah.
Maybe let's do it from the.
Just open that slide. So I had some experience on getting hate mail in my various inboxes, and I did write a paper about it and did art installation a couple of years before. So so that of course was sort of in the background when I started, you know, seeing these anonymous or people using pseudonyms to doing this meme researcher memes. So I was dealing with sort of a lot of mixed emotions there myself. I was happy on the other hand, but on the other hand, I was a bit afraid what this will get into. But then the first kind of hint that I got that it's the meme makers were not hostile towards me was when one of them sent a direct message to my personal account asking whether this memepal project account was actually mine or whether it's somebody trolling me. So I sort of realized that, yeah, maybe maybe they're not hostile towards me. So here are some other ones. So Foucault, obviously. Dear nice Mr. Foucault, what do you say about this political meme? Yeah, it needs to be observed. And then the other one is me making funny pictures on the internet, university meme researchers analyzing my actions. So then a few weeks later, after this started happening, I went on a new primetime talk show on the YLE, the national broadcasting company, to talk about memes. The show is called Kulttuurikocktail, Cultural Cocktail. And the main question there was framed around whether memes are art or not. And the talk show is aimed to capture a really wide audience. It's on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. And also they were trying various ways to engage the audience. So it initially had the sort of, on Channel 1, the half-an-hour talk show, and then it continued on the streaming site, and then had a chat function and everything. I can't remember now if they used the chat anymore, but at least the continuing discussion that was only streamed on the Arena, they don't do anymore. So they have this chat open during the show, and they pull comments from the chat to be shown on TV screen. And they advertised the show on Instagram the week before, and they used the variation of the old Batman is slapping Robin meme, which you probably remember, and then asked the meme makers to make their own versions of it. So this is sort of saying do it yourself or pay me, and the other is Robin is saying make a free custom art for me and we'll give you some visibility. So these were quite critical of what YLE was trying to do, exploit the labor of the meme artists as well. And so the chat also during the show was really on fire, and it had this is I think the 6th or the 7th week of the show after it started, and it had never been that active before. So the meme community really was actively involved in this. And also I got a lot of support after the show through Instagram, instant messages, and also a lot of the comments that were left in the chat were really supportive. So then I sort of realized that that it's not a hostile environment, but I can actually become part of the meme sphere, I guess, of the Finnish Instagram. So I use a method that I've called a reverse snowballing in my doctoral dissertation. So it's partly, snowballing as a method of sort of gathering information through various networks, but also the reverse part is that the material is coming sort of towards me. So in other words, I start following accounts that have followed me before. I save posts that are sent to me, or if I'm tagged in the comments. Also on Facebook, I often do collections of memes. I post a meme and say, post yours in the comments. For example, the Bernie memes, I collect that way. And sort of my approach to doing it could be called digital ethnography, but it's just to sort of I scroll through the feed and sort of observe what's going on, what's being discussed and mimified, and of course there are various inside jokes that are sort of take a while to get into, that are varied by many meme makers. Of course, a lot of these inside jokes get old really fast. Some continue for a long time, for a couple of years at least. So it's mainly what I like to call floating through the feed. And usually I don't systematically save posts when I do this sort of floating or scrolling. But when there's a topic that I really want to get into, then I sort of go back and to the accounts that I think had something relevant there. So for example, when I was asked to participate in Turku at a Political Imaginations and Utopias seminar, then I went back and screen captured about 200 relevant memes and then identified the themes that sort of come up with them. And I think what's really interesting is that, or interesting and also difficult, is that a lot of the humor is really absurd. So when I was in Turku for that seminar, everybody immediately started thinking about the memes through like various particular theories, but they don't really capture all of it. So you sort of have to allow yourself to just, go with the flow and try to sometimes just live with it that, I don't get what's going on and it just might take a while. But also, as the topic was co-creation, once I figured out that the meme makers were sort of welcoming my presence in their space and were willing to engage with me, I started wondering about the possibilities of collective knowledge production. So then I have, for instance, asked them about terminology. First, whether the meme makers see themselves or would like to be called meme makers, meme admins, something else, and also what the community should be called. And there was a really interesting discussions in the comments when I posted these questions and really sort of detailed answers on, for example, why some of them want to be called meme admins, because that then includes all the admin work that having a meme account entails. For example, conversing with the followers and other meme admins, debating, blocking haters and trolls, and also using one's visibility for activism or charity. Then on the other hand, meme maker, anybody can become a meme maker. It doesn't require an account or even publishing memes. You can just do it privately. Some want to really emphasize that they are artists, so meme artists, which then emphasizes the creativity. And now recently there has been 2 exhibitions by the It Girls collective, 3 meme makers from this scene. First was in Helsinki in December, and now in Tampere in January. Unfortunately, it just ended, but it was in Verstas. So now memes are even making it from Instagram to the museums. And also then there was a bit of a debate about whether a meme community would be a more inclusive term, including the meme enjoyers, the audience, and then maybe meme scene is a more limited notion. It can be temporary, sort of scenes, particular aesthetics or styles come and go, topics come and go. And then maybe memesphere works. And then also in this paper, I try to think about a little bit of navigating between different subject positions as a researcher. I often, when I first started working in this particular paper, I had a hard time. I was writing an abstract for an international relations scholar audience. That's where my background is. So I got into this sort of really serious mode. I need to be a serious researcher, and then nothing really happened because I was taking myself too seriously. So then there's always this tension that I also want to do something playful, be, more maybe playful rebel, and not like a serious political scientist or international relations scholar. And then also participating on the memesphere sort of requires, I think, a more playful attitude. And I've also made some memes myself about research and about other topics, so I try to participate in that way as well. I think I had some on the politics, but I think I'm gonna end here and take your questions and answer them. Maybe, yeah, just a little note that I wanted to say that something I've learned from being sort of part of this memesphere is that, especially I come from an academic background where sort of sole authorship is highly valued. We don't do a lot of co-authoring or collaboration that much in sort of political science, international relations. Although in the last years it's been becoming more common to co-author as well, but coming from this perspective where, of course, we all know how it is to compete for funding and do all this, it's been really refreshing to see how sort of supportive and caring environment this memesphere is. Often, especially as I started to study political memes, that often means alt-right memes, which are layers upon layers of irony and have really hostile messaging underneath. But this, the sort of Finnish Instagram memesphere has been really lovely and refreshing to observe because it's very sort of nice and caring, and everybody sort of lifts up each other there. And I've heard, as I've gotten to know some of the meme admins, a lot of them do this back channel thing. If somebody's memes start to get really dark, they might, send messages, is everything okay? Are you okay? So there's also a lot of sort of back channel caring going on, and I think that has been something that, at least for me as an academic, has been really nice. Any questions?
Wonderful. Thank you, Saara.
Thank you.
Now we can take some questions.
Well, probably somebody who has studied online communities would have a good answer of how commonplace this is. But I'm sure communities form online quite organically, maybe. But then I think that tends to happen no matter sort of what the scene or the topic or the mode is. But yeah, you can. It's observable even scrolling and looking at the comments and everything. But then I've organized a few events with the Päivälehden Museo in the museum in Helsinki, and where we had some of the meme admins as speakers as well. And of course, then and a lot of them came in the audience as well. So I had some live discussions there as well, and then heard a little bit more. And it is quite interesting as they have gotten to know each other in real life, but they still call themselves by their nicknames or the handles or whatever, which is quite funny in a way as well. But I think that also tends to happen in this kind of communities. But yeah, it is visible there that it is a caring, supportive environment. And also you can see a lot of when somebody starts a new account, and then a lot of the sort of bigger accounts who have a lot of followers, they often then share these small new accounts in their stories and everything. So they sort of give their visibility to others as well, which I think it's, if you think about, academia citations, everything, it's very sort of similar logic. But then maybe because then on my sort of personal account, I follow some influencers and such, and I think for me at least there is a little bit of feeling that the sort of influencer scene, while they can be supportive of each other, but there is a little bit more of competition than I think in the meme sphere. So I think there is a difference there.
Thank you very much.
Use Finnish, which then is there's a lot of class consciousness and discussion about, it's quite sort of leftist feminist scene, I would say. So I think it's about accessibility for some of them, at least, the choice to actually use Finnish, and so it's accessible to sort of anyone in Finland. But then, of course, a lot of them follow English accounts, and some of them might have multiple accounts as well. Some, doing, or some posting more in English than in Finnish, and then have these. But these sort of particular ones that I've been following are in Finnish.
Thank you. This is super interesting.
Post your memes in the comments. And so Tuninama, I did that, but also did on Twitter, the hashtags and everything. Bernie, same thing, I posted and collected stuff that way. Or the Capitol Hill attacks where memes really became relevant. And now, of course, this Mika Lintilä thing is central because it was a meme that he sent or somebody sent from his WhatsApp. So it's a minister in the Finnish government who claims that his WhatsApp was hijacked because a meme making fun of the prime minister and somebody else was sent from his WhatsApp, and now it's kind of up in the air whether he has to resign because he went all the way with saying that maybe in Africa they hijacked his WhatsApp account. And so that was one where I didn't know what the meme was. There was this talk about, and I was like, okay, now I really have to Google what this meme is. But also in my earlier work, in my dissertation, I sort of made a point about memes, and this was back in 2014, and the material I used was even from earlier, so things have changed quite a bit. But I argue a little bit that when it comes to how we know international relations in the everyday, sometimes it happens through memes, and we don't even find out. Like, you actually have to do some work to find out what has happened. And a lot of, also interestingly, a lot of these meme makers, or not a lot of, but some of them say, oh yeah, I don't follow the news at all. If something is important enough, it'll come through in the sort of meme sphere as well. So I think sort of what we know about politics and the international, which has been my interest, on the everyday level, it's getting more and more fragmented, and we know through these memes more than before.
Questions in the back? More questions? No? I have.
Okay.
I don't think it's being discussed that much there. Of course, sometimes, and there's this whole discussion on, Instagram being owned by Meta and what that means, and how, who owns who owns what in general. But I don't think there's a lot of discussion on using these images and then reworking them. I think everybody pretty much takes it as a given that when you rework it, it sort of becomes your own. But definitely memes have been mainstream, because now that this exhibition happened, two of these It Girls collective meme makers, meme admins, they were on the national TV morning show a couple of weeks ago, and which is super interesting. When I sort of started applying for funding for this, I got, especially from like political science, well, how do you know that memes matter? How do they matter? There's this all sort of, it's just some small thing out there. Why would it matter in any kind of way? And now I'm like, yeah, this is what I was trying to say like 8 years ago already. But so now it's becoming more and more visible, I guess. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, we have already a little bit over time, but I was
haven't used it and I haven't really looked into it, but thanks for that. I definitely will. I know a lot of my, but some of my colleagues who teach international relations have been using it as a student assignment to have students make memes, which is one way of doing the things, but But yeah, thanks for that. It's definitely something to look into.